Oh, shit. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Eat Sleep Drive. Now, I make a video once a week, every Friday, as you guys know. And some weeks, as Friday's approaching, I'm like, what am I gonna do for this week? I need some content. And fortunately, I own an E55 AMG, which always breaks. This time, we're dealing with, surprise, on a German car, an oil leak. Let's pop the hood here. Here's what's going on. I had a bunch of oil kind of squirt all over here, and it doesn't look bad now because I've already started to clean it up, because I was trying to figure out where it was coming from. You can kind of see some oil down there. Initially I thought it was coming from the oil filter housing cover, this cap thing, but that is not the case. And then I finally determined that it's coming from this hose, and you can kind of see like a line in that hose. I think it's that hose is just like old, and what happens is when you really get on it, it just like squirts oil everywhere. This kind of looks like a pain in the ass to replace, and it's like $300, which is kind of a bummer. Most of the stuff I fixed on this so far hasn't been terribly expensive. It's just taken my time. I don't know how involved this is, but that's what we're gonna do today. Let's pull it into the garage and see if we can get these oil lines out. Don't hit the Mustang. Okay, let's get started here. And I think the best way to replace these oil lines, these guys right here, is actually gonna be probably from below. So there are a bunch of under trays under the car. So that's where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna jack up the car and see if I can just get to these oil lines down there and see exactly where they lead. And that will tell us what all is gonna have to be removed. I'm hoping that I don't have to remove too much stuff, although this fan shroud definitely is taking up a lot of space. But once again, I just don't really know where these oil lines run. So let's jack up the car, get the under trays off, and then have a look under there. A center jack point like the one on this E55 is a nice touch. With jack stands under the car, I'll just have to remove the front under tray. There are a handful of fasteners on each side, and it comes right out. Okay, so let's have a look under here, and yep, you can definitely see where the oil's been leaking. All kinds of oils down these lines. Some of these I think are AC lines, but the lines in question for us are, let's see, here's the little front oil cooler thing. So this is one of the lines. We'll have to see exactly where that goes. So we'll have to disconnect it here, which is obviously pretty easy to get to, so that's nice. So that's where one of them goes. Now the other one looks a bit trickier. I believe it's this line right here that runs over down here, and then yep, okay, so here's like the oil cooler with the fan. I don't understand why there's two. I really don't, to be honest with you. So it goes up around here and then up there, and then this one comes. Okay, so this one, if I don't have to remove, I won't. Definitely gonna have to get to that fitting on the top there, which means that this fender liner is gonna have to at least be loosened up. There are a bunch of fasteners holding the fender liner on, and I ended up just taking the wheel off to make things a bit easier. The biggest pain with this whole job was the AN style fitting that secures to the oil cooler itself. These should be easy to take off, but they just weren't. I tried putting a pipe on this wrench and it still wouldn't budge. In fact, the fitting started to round. I ended up having to get drastic and carefully cut off the fitting itself, making sure to not ruin the male oil cooler side. This was okay because we were replacing the whole female side. Okay, this fitting was a huge pain in the ass, and you could see here what I had to do. You see that slice in that thing? I was able to slice it without hitting any of these threads. So that's really good, and that fitting is now off. Once again, I hopefully will not have to replace this hose because it goes to the other smaller oil cooler. So with this one off, there's really just the other one that we need to do, which is right here, this thing I'm hitting. We could take that off pretty easily, but it's hard to tell where all these lines are connected to. So I'm gonna take off this little hose here, see if I could get some more room. This is just like for cold air induction type stuff. It's gonna be super hard to show you guys, but what I think I'm gonna do is remove these oil lines here, and then unbolt this bracket right here, and then kind of move these around and see if I'm going to be able to kind of pull these lines out, or if there's some sort of bracket down there also holding them in. The top oil lines are held in with 2 E10 Torx fasteners. All right, now these are out, and I'm going to try and see what I can do from below as far as getting the brackets removed. Each line has a few 10mm fasteners holding them to the fan shroud. Remove those and the lines are almost free. Now, as far as the lines go, I really think I just have to take off this one here that goes to small oil cooler, runs this way. So I'm gonna take this off, and there should be a lot of oil in here. So if you're ready for a mess, get ready. It's coming. Okay. Yep, there's some oil. So let's let this drain a bit, and then we will do what's inevitably going to be super messy and try and pull these lines out from the top. And you know, as these are coming up, I'm sure they're going to be spilling oil everywhere. So what I'll probably try and do is stick a paper towel on the end, wrap it in a paper bag, maybe with a zip tie or like a rubber band, and try and catch as much of the oil as possible. Well, I thought that once I had the line free, I was just going to be able to pull them out between the fan shroud and the pulleys. As you can probably guess by now, that wasn't the case. There just isn't enough room. So I had to take off the radiator support bracket, which came off pretty easy with a few bolts. Then I had to remove the radiator fan itself, and then I was finally able to pull the lines out. Everything's apart now, so hopefully when I get these new lines, I could just slam them in here, and we will be on our way. So cut to me getting the new lines in the mail. And here we are a few days later, and the lines are in, fresh new lines, beautiful. And it's time to start the long process of putting this back together. Now, I hope I can remember how to put it back together, but if I don't, I'm just gonna reference the beginning of this video for how I did it. So I'm really just gonna switch to a time lapse, guys, and if I come across something that is noteworthy and is any different than just putting things back together the way they came apart, I will interject, but otherwise, enjoy the time lapse. Let's put this back together and start it up and hope to God it doesn't leak. Okay, not everything is back together. The fender liner's still all apart, the under trays are still out, but I wanted to start the car with everything, all the important things plugged in, just to make sure there are no leaks before I get everything back together, because I would hate to have to take it apart again. So let's start the car. I put some oil in that we lost. Probably a good time to change the oil if you haven't done it recently, but let's start it and let's see what happens. So, good news so far. Knock on wood, no leaks yet that I've seen. I'm gonna button this thing the rest of the way up. We're gonna take it for a proper drive, get it warmed up, and hopefully it will be fixed. Okay, let's go for a little drive here. Get this thing nice and warm. Do a couple pulls, and then check the engine bay. Let's hop on it a bit here. Doing a couple pulls here, getting her over 4,000 RPM so we can check to see if there's oil anywhere in the engine bay. Let's go park the car, pop the hood, and check it out. Well guys, that was it. Fortunately, there's no more oil spraying everywhere in the engine bay, nothing underneath. Everything has checked out okay. And so that's obviously what all the oil was. These oil lines, you know, the engine flexes a little bit, and just over years of it flexing and those oil lines getting old and just dried up, you know, there was just a little slit in there, and they eventually perish and get oil everywhere. So I've seen a few instances of people complaining about this online, so I'm sure it's fairly common as these cars get older, but this is the first video that I've seen for a DIY for it. So hopefully it helps you guys out if you have an E55. If you don't have an E55, hopefully you enjoyed coming along for the ride and laughing at me for buying an E55. Overall, when this car works, it's amazing. I've obviously had a few little niggles here and there, but when it's on point, it's on point. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you want to check me out in between episodes, check me out on Instagram at Eat Sleep Drive TV. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of Eat Sleep Drive. See ya.